Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. First off, I want to wish everybody a late Christmas, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. I wish all the best for you and your family, and I hope 2025 will be better for you than last year, and I hope that you find success in whatever it is that you're pursuing. The holidays and everything, I took a break. It's been real hectic. I have a pocket bully. You guys seen her on here before. She's pregnant. We took her to the vet the last 2 weeks, and we've been to the vet the last 2 days. She's ready to pop. We got a minimum of 8 puppies coming, maybe 9. So for all your viewers out there, if you're interested in a mix, it's the dad is a XL bully. We got papers on him. And my dog is a pocket bully. We got papers on her. They all come from a prestigious line. I didn't intend to be a dog breeder just yet, because, my life has been kind of, I'm rebuilding my life and things are a little hectic. But it's happened. We might be having the pups tomorrow morning. If not, Friday, Saturday for sure. So yeah, if you guys are interested, man, hit me up on my Facebook, hit me up on my Instagram. It's under the same name, Mesarith, M-E-S-A-R-I-T-H. I'll start taking pictures of the pups and everything. And yeah, I need to get rid of them. And maybe it's a new breed, we could call it a BMA line. I don't know. But they're good looking dogs. At least my dog and the dad. So hopefully the pups will come out, just as beautiful as they are. But anyway, if you guys been following the news, I watch a lot of news. You guys been following the news, you guys seen a lot of these supposedly drone sightings, right? And I still got individuals that I fuck with that are still incarcerated that call me here and there. And they watch the news in there, and they're a little concerned about it for the simple fact that being in the USP penitentiary level, they have a clause in there, right? When it's a state of emergency or security risk or whatever, outside the rules and regulation, the warden have absolute power to shut down the prison, to evacuate the inmates, or whatever. Now, when I first entered the prison system, you always hear rumors about if there's a war on American soil, that they're just going to lock us in our cell. They might gas us or just leave us in our cell to die. For a long time, for me, I always thought it was a conspiracy theory. All right? One of those conspiracy things that these guys in the penitentiary tell you to scare you. But if you watch, when you're in the units and in the kitchen or everywhere, they always have little doors that the COs come in, little holes up in the ceilings for, I don't know, whatever purpose. But like I said, the older heads would tell you, oh, those are for when they drop the gas or for them to come in and shoot you and all the rest. Us being in America here, we have 2 great oceans between us, the Atlantic and the Pacific, that keeps our adversaries oceans apart from us, that divides us and separates us from them. Where in other countries like the Middle East and Europe and all stuff, all those countries are all bordering. They're all next to each other, so it's easy to conduct conflict. It's easy to start wars just going across the border. We've been a world power for a long time. Over 200, the nation's over 240, 250 years old. But if anybody reads history, the lifespan of great empires lasts between 250 and 300 years. So we're at the 11th hour of our range. Now, the reason that my friends that been calling home that are concerned about these drone sightings and all that is because of what happened during the Katrina. I shared this story with you guys. During 2005, when the Katrina hit Texas, the guys in Beaumont, when their family called the prison with concerns about their peoples in there and how they're faring, the staff, the prison told them that they were evacuating everybody from the area. And they evacuated the FCI, they evacuated the camps. But people that were in the USP were locked in their cells. When I got to Beaumont in about March of 2006, and I heard all the horror stories. These guys were locked in their cells were flooded. If you didn't have commissary, if you didn't have, the bottled water that you bought from commissary, you were kind of screwed. And the only thing that saved their lives was there was, I think, maybe between 2 and 4 COs. I don't know how many exactly, but these COs, and God bless them, they refused to leave the inmates. Every other CO left, all the camps evacuated, all the FCI evacuated, all the inmates were relocated to another facilities except for the one in the USP. USP Beaumont, the inmates in USP Beaumont was locked down and left for dead. And they might have died if it weren't for these few COs that refused to leave. And they were the ones that were packing the lunch meal and still passing it out to all the inmates. They ran out of water. There was no electricity. They were in there, and if anybody's been in Texas, especially Beaumont, it's real humid. And it was a fucked up situation. They have a lawsuit on it, or they did when I first got there. The COs that stayed behind, they got awarded like between $200,000 or $500,000 a piece. The inmates at one point, they were offered $75,000. But on a class action lawsuit, everybody has to accept the deal. And there was a few inmates that didn't accept the deal because they were like, well, if the COs were getting $200,000 to $500,000 for their pain and suffering, then the inmates that's locked in the cell should get the same as the CO. Well, I think an attorney on that case, leading attorney on that case, passed away, something. And anyway, at the end of the day, none of the inmates in USP Beaumont got a dime, right? So coming back to these drone sightings, like I said, I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. During my time that I was incarcerated, I read a lot of things. I read a lot of books and a lot of things that were on the fringe. And at those times, they were on the fringe, and I didn't pay too much credence to it. But being home these last two years and 4 months, being able to have access to, different channels and different informations and stuff, I've come to realize that there was a lot of truth to a lot of these things that I've read. Now, Americans, we as Americans that live in the United States of America, again, we've been spoiled because all the wars that we fought outside of the Civil War and the French Revolution and, in the beginning of building up this nation has been on somebody else's soil. I myself am a product of war. I came here in 84. Between 75 and 79, our country was taken over by Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge. At that time, it was the worst genocide per capita than the Holocaust. The only other genocide that exceeded that is the one in Darfur during the Clinton administration. You have a lot of people here in America that aren't European origin. And the reason a lot of them are brought over here is because of the chaos and the wars that happen in their country. There's a lot of refugees seeking refuge here in America. So for these people, they understand what it's like to be caught in the middle of a war, the devastation, the tragedies, and the violence that, that happens around them, that cause them to lose their loved ones, cause them to flee, and all the rest. So the rumors in the penitentiary is that if there's ever a war on American soil, all the inmates in the penitentiary are either going to be killed or locked in their cell and left to die. And again, when I heard these things in the beginning, I thought they were conspiracy. But the 2005 Katrina in Bloody Beaumont opened my eyes and made me realize there's some truth to that. So the reason that these guys are concerned about these drone sightings and stuff that's been going on around the country and around the world, but mainly New Jersey, New York, Arizona, a little part of California, is that if something does happen where it's a national security, a state of emergency, on the totem pole, prisoners are at the bottom. They're going to protect the citizens that are out here are free, are going to be able to do something to protect themselves. The next place is they're going to go and try to secure and help the people that are in the hospitals. But the inmates, we're at the bottom of the food chain. The guys at the camp, there's no fence around the camp, and they're deemed low-risk inmates, so they might just open the doors and let them run and do whatever they need to do. Now, the FCIs, I'm not really sure what their protocol is when it comes to that. But the USP, these inmates that are in the United States Penitentiary are considered violent and high risk. They are not releasing them. And another thing is that if there's a state of emergency on American soil, everybody in uniform, whether you're the military, law enforcement, National Guard, or correctional officers, you have some type of law enforcement association, gun training, and all the rest. So every able body is going to be recalled to come and put up a defense. So everybody that works in the penitentiary, all the staff, they're going to be recalled. And there's going to be nobody left in a penitentiary to pass out the food to the inmates or any of that. So the likelihood that the inmates in the penitentiary is going to be locked in their cell and left to die is very likely. And like I said, I can speak that from experience, not myself personally being locked down, but me being in Bloody Beaumont after Katrina and hearing the stories from all the inmates that was there during the Katrina. So going back to the drones, the official statement is that these are drones and they're not our adversaries, right? I don't know any more than anybody else that is not part of the government. All my information just comes from watching television, reading newspapers, and all the rest of it. But I believe I have a pretty high level of common sense and logic. So at the end of the day, it can only be one of two things. Either these entities are not human, whether they come from outside our globe or underneath our oceans. They have advanced technology that the military doesn't seem to be able to do anything about. If you guys follow on the fringe, Antarctica is a place where every nation has a flag over there. And that people believe that World War III will start when one of the nations in Antarctic violate the treaty. The treaty is that they can be in Antarctic doing research, taking samples, but can never take anything away from Antarctic. They can't possess any of that stuff. Everything has to stay in Antarctic, right? Now, the second thing is that if these are not ETs or things that are not human, then they must be our government. They have to be our government because our country, our government cannot allow another foreign government to be flying their drones or their vehicles into our nation without permission and in restricted areas. So the concern comes from the homies in the penitentiary, and even for me, I'm concerned for them because, when I first got locked up in '98, we had that Y2K scare, right? Where the computer's gonna crash and all this and that. And I was afraid that, maybe the world would end and I would die in a penitentiary. And then 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar, it was the same concern. But, fortunately, none of those situations, none of those scenarios happened. And I was able to come home before any crazy shit can happen on our soil. But again, things are wrapping up, right? And whether it's entities from outer space, under the water, or our own government, it's not good for us. If it's entities that are not human, then maybe we can rely on our government to help defend us, regardless how futile, how frivolous it might be. Maybe they don't have the weapons to combat them or whatever, but at least we can put up a defense or try to, and some of us might have a chance. But if it's the second thing, if it's our own government, then there's nobody there to protect us but our own, right? Like I said, I don't want to get into the rabbit hole of everything. And I correlate this with the prison story because really the people that in the penitentiary are at high risk of being left to die if something happens here on American soil. But for you guys at home, don't disregard it. If it's a psyop, whatever it is, there's a reason why they're putting it out there. And to ensure your own safety, you and your family, you should prepare yourself for it. Regardless if it's entities that are not us or it's our government. The elite, they only want two classes of citizens. They do not like the middle class. They do not like people that are self-sufficient. They want them that owns and run everything, and the rest of us laboring. You have the elite class and the peasant. Middle class is just another term for peasants. Back then you had the royalties, people that were part of the royal family and all that structure. Then the peasants, the ones that was out in the village, farming, herding, and doing all the labors for the wealthy, for the rich. There's a lot of people here in this world that do not like the idea of liberty, do not like the idea of freedom for the rest of us. And I think we should start recognizing that and understanding that and not rely on them to come and assist us or aid us or help us in any way, shape, or form, but instead prepare ourselves to be self-efficient, prepare ourselves to be able to defend ourselves. Because at the end of the day, man, they don't care about us. We're only as good to them so as long as we can get up and clean up after them, put their shit together on their assembly lines, work in their departments and warehouses. Outside of that, our lives don't matter to them. And I can say that for a fact just because of all the policies that's come down throughout the years, all the different stuff that's happened to the citizens that doesn't change them, doesn't change their way of life. They live behind gated community. They have their own security forces, but they always preach that we shouldn't have rights to bear arms, that we shouldn't have the right to protect ourselves. If you go and try to live off the grid they'll come for you. Ruby Red, Waco, look those things up. The government do not want you to be self-sufficient. That's why they make rules where you can't harvest rainwater, which is a natural resource. But instead, they want you to drink this poison that out of our faucet that's full of chemicals that's been linked to all sorts of cancers. You look at all the trees around your cities. None of them are fruit trees because they don't want you to be able to go outside and pick something to eat. They want you to go to the grocery stores where all their hormones and chemically injected vegetables and fruits and meat. At the end of the day, they want us as citizens to be reliant on them. Because for the simple fact that everything comes with a price. When you ask the government, when you go to the bank and ask them for a loan, they'll give it to you, or they might not, but if they give it to you, it comes with all sorts of stipulations and regulations and rules and interest and all the rest. Which I'm not saying is anything wrong with that. They got to make their money or whatever, but it's predatory lending, right? The same thing with the government. When the government gives you assistance, there's always strings attached. When you have the citizens that are relying and dependent on the government, you become their servants, their slaves. Because now they say, hey, if you want to continue to get these benefits, well, we're about to change the rules, but these rules are for your own safety. Yeah, it might restrict your liberty. Sure, it might restrict your freedom. Sure, it might restrict your free speech and all the rest. But if you don't agree, we're going to cut you off. Just like anybody that knows anything, that's been in the streets or whatever, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So if you're depending on somebody else that feeds you, then they're going to dictate how you live your life. And that's the direction that we're going right now. But at the end of the day, man, I wish you guys a great new year. I hope and pray that you guys take precautions to help ensure your safety and your family's safety to the best of your ability. And to all my brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, man, there's not much that I can do to raise your spirit or have a solution. I just pray that some of you can get out before the ship hits the fan. And for the ones that are never getting out, I'm sorry. I don't have the words. Welcome to the USP.